The paedophile rock star who plumbed new depths of depravity is jailed for 35 years. Ian Watkins committed a string of sex offences against children and babies. Now there are questions over whether he could have been caught sooner.
Everything that I was reading, that people were tweeting, was everything that I've been reporting for 5 years.
Also tonight, the heartbroken mother of the British doctor allegedly murdered in Syria on how she tried to rescue him.
Britain's top military man goes on the attack over diminishing manpower in the services.
And time runs out for Ronnie Biggs. The great train robber dies at 84.
This is ITV News with Julie Etchingham and Alastair Stewart.
Good evening. Paedophile Ian Watkins is tonight at the centre of an international police investigation as he starts a 35-year jail sentence for the abuse of children and babies. Police in Germany and the United States are now examining whether there are more victims overseas. And the police watchdog here is investigating whether 3 forces could have stopped him sooner. Today, a judge told the Lost Prophet singer his crimes were so depraved it was difficult to imagine anything much worse. And you may find details in this report from Rupert Evelyn. Distressing.
Ian Watkins has plumbed new depths of depravity, his horrifying crimes breaking new ground for those who are used to dealing with paedophiles. The judge said the lead singer of the Lost Prophets had a dark and sinister side and that he was a deeply corrupting influence, highly manipulative and dangerous. 36-year-old Watkins was given a 35-year sentence for his crimes, which involved using his celebrity status to lure young mothers into taking part in the sexual abuse of children. There's no doubting the severity of these crimes, but there are numerous questions over whether he could have been caught sooner. The rock star's former lover, Joanne Majelik, said she could not sit in court and listen to details of crimes she'd been reporting to police for years.
I'm upset about the fact that everything that I was reading, that people were tweeting, was everything that I've been reporting for 5 years. Everything.
The police watchdog, the IPCC, is investigating 3 forces over their handling of allegations. From October 2008, South Wales police were contacted by members of the public and Crime Stoppers. In October 2010 and then in April 2012, they were also contacted by 2 other forces with information containing claims. South Yorkshire Police is under investigation over its handling of 3 reports made to them between March and May 2012. And Bedfordshire Police's handling of information from a member of the public in October 2012 is also being looked into.
We take it very seriously. We know that the public has key questions about whether this man could have been brought to justice earlier. We have those questions as well, and we will robustly and rigorously and thoroughly investigate till we get to the bottom of it.
The various forces won't yet comment on the specific allegations. Crimes, the judge said, would cause shock, revulsion and anger in any decent person.
And Rupert, the police have been making clear today that this investigation is far from over.
That's right. By the very nature of Ian Watkins' job, he travelled the world, he had access to young girls in an almost plentiful supply. It's perhaps no surprise that over the last few weeks more information has come forward to police about this man. And equally, he spent an awful lot of time in America and abroad. We know that the authorities on the other side of the Atlantic are looking at his actions. They are also investigating what he has been up to in Germany as well. You know, Ian Watkins was a man who planned horrifying crimes. He preyed on very young victims, and to many people it is almost inconceivable that there are not more victims out there.
Rupert, thank you.
There have been more positive signs of economic growth on both sides of the Atlantic. Here, the latest unemployment figures showed more people were in work than ever before. And tonight, the United States Federal Reserve cut the amount of money it is pumping into their economy. Well, in a moment, we'll have analysis from our economics editor, Richard Edgar. But first, to our Washington correspondent, Robert Moore. Robert, how surprising is this?
I think the timing is a surprise to many economists who expected this move probably early next year. But the big strategic decision to scale back this ambitious stimulus programme, that really is not a surprise at all. The decision is a carefully calibrated one to reduce the bond buying programme by about $10 billion each month. And what it really does is reflect the improving growth and employment figures here. Remember, America over the last 4 months has been creating 200,000 jobs every month. And that is giving the Federal Reserve some real confidence.
Today's policy actions reflect the committee's assessment that the economy is continuing to make progress, but that it also has much farther to travel before conditions can be judged normal. Notably, despite significant fiscal headwinds, the economy has been expanding at a moderate pace, and we expect that growth will pick up somewhat in coming quarters.
Well, this is not risk-free. Some economists, some Federal Reserve bankers are saying tonight that actually, the economy may be too fragile, that this may be premature, but certainly it's a suitably dramatic and theatrical way for Ben Bernanke to end his tenure at the Fed.
Robert, thank you very much indeed. And as I say, Richard is live with me in the studio. You found some parallels with what's going on there with what may happen here.
Yes, a surprising recovery in the economy, a central bank that's trying to manage expectations. There are parallels. The Federal Reserve has, amongst other triggers that it's pointed to for its actions today, highlighted unemployment and a marked improvement in unemployment. And we've had something similar over here as well. Let me take you through the numbers. In the 3 months to October, unemployment fell by a whopping 99,000 people to 2.39 million people. That took the unemployment rate down from 7.6% to 7.4%. That's the lowest figure for 4 years. And here's another parallel. Both the Federal Reserve in Washington and the Bank of England have promised to keep interest rates low until unemployment falls significantly. Well, it is falling, and is falling much faster than either bank is expected. Suddenly, the banks are trying to reassure investors that those unemployment thresholds are not so important right now. They're not in a rush to put up rates until the recovery is firmly entrenched. So things have turned a corner, but there's a long way to go yet.
All right, Richard, thank you very much.
The mother of the British doctor whose family believe was murdered in Syria has told ITV News how she fought the Assad regime for his release. Fatima Khan is in Beirut, where she's now trying to bring Abbas Khan's body home. Juliet Bremner heard her moving story.
This is what he was when I found him. Look at this picture. Such a healthy boy.
Fatima Khan holds up a picture of 32-year-old Abbas, her son, who was due to be released from a Syrian jail this weekend, but is now dead.
I blame myself. Until I die, I'll blame that I'm the cause of my son's death.
She blames herself for his death, but another son, Afroz, who's with her in Beirut, and her children in Britain believe what she's done is remarkable. When the 32-year-old orthopaedic surgeon went missing in Syria, the family got no help from the British authorities. So Fatima, a 57-year-old housewife who'd never travelled abroad, went to Damascus alone and successfully fought for his release.
I beg them, I beg every door there, everybody there, then give me my son. Many people, they say, okay, don't worry. I touch everybody's feet, then give me my son. He's an innocent man. Humanitarian aid worker, his profession was to give life, not to take life.
Despite being granted a pardon by President Assad, the Syrian authorities say that Abbas took his own life in prison, a claim dismissed by the family.
I believe that he was taken from his prison on Friday by National Security Services and he was killed. They did not want him to be released. I think he's become victim of internal friction.
The Syrians have said a team of international doctors can go to Damascus to carry out a post-mortem, but his mother just wants him home.
We don't want no investigation. He's dead now. Just give us the body and we'll go.
We don't want to do any investigation. No one is going to come to Damascus to do an autopsy on my brother.
The Khans feel betrayed and let down. Their priority is to return Abbas to the wife and young children, who must now spend Christmas in mourning. Juliet Bremner, ITV News.
Here, the head of Britain's armed forces warned the government tonight that the Navy is perilously close to shrinking to its critical mass, with manpower at dangerously low levels. General Sir Nick Houghton, the chief of the Defence Staff, said that Britain is overall at risk of creating a hollow force with the right equipment but not enough people to work it. Our Deputy Political Editor Chris Shipp on the General's warning shot.
The most senior general in the military was tonight unveiling a new bust of Winston Churchill, who, before he became Prime Minister, was twice head of the Royal Navy. Quite what the wartime leader would have made of the current size of our forces, we can only guess. But the Chief of the Defence Staff was clear. There can now be no more cuts to military personnel.
Exquisite equipment, but insufficient resources to man that equipment or train on it. This is what the Americans call the spectre of the hollow force. We're not there yet, but across defence I would identify the Royal Navy as being perilously close to its critical mass in manpower terms.
Prioritising equipment over manpower is a particular problem for the Royal Navy, where new destroyers, 2 new aircraft carriers and a dozen planned frigates have been ordered, while numbers of personnel are being cut.
Cutting weapon systems is very obvious. Cut the manpower, you don't notice the problem until you need to use the weapon systems. And the danger of a hollow force is that it looks all right on paper, it looks all right on the outside, but when you try to do something with it or deploy it, then the training isn't there, the capacity isn't there, it can't really do anything.
2 years before the Falklands War in 1980, there were more than 70,000 Royal Navy personnel. When we first joined the war in Afghanistan, that had declined to 42,000. At the last election, it was down to 38,000, and the coalition plans to cut it further. By 2020, there will be fewer than 30,000 Navy personnel.
You know, you can't play around with your manpower. You've got to man the weapon systems you've got, the ships you've got. I believe we have too few ships, but certainly with the small number of ships we have, we've squeezed our manpower.
This speech would not have been cleared without the approval of the Defence Secretary, so it suggests that he too fears that Britain may be nearing the point of no return on the numbers of personnel. And this was a convenient way to let his cabinet colleague at the Treasury know exactly how he feels. Chris Shipp, ITV News at the Ministry of Defence.
A White House-appointed panel has called for limits on the amount of data collected on billions of phone calls made by US citizens. The panel was set up by the White House after leaks from whistleblower Edward Snowden exposed the extent of spying by the National Security Agency. It also says new tests are needed before foreign leaders are spied on.
Still to come on the programme, our first look at tomorrow's front pages, then exclusive pictures from inside the convent in Syria, where 13 nuns were kidnapped.
Also ahead, a new flexible friend, the plans to replace paper banknotes with plastic. The government has rushed through new measures that will stop new EU immigrants claiming out-of-work benefits here as soon as they arrive. Under the plans, migrants will have to wait 3 months before they can claim job seekers allowance. It comes just days before restrictions on Romanian and Bulgarian workers are lifted. Our political correspondent, Carl Dinnan, has more.
Police and immigration officials raided a small house in West London this morning. Behind it, they found a series of sheds. 14 people were housed here, many thought to be illegal immigrants. This afternoon, there was another visit to the property.
You found someone in here when you came in?
But the Prime Minister was promoting his approach to legal migrants and their ability to claim benefits.
There is a right to go and work and take a job in another European country, but there shouldn't be a right to go and just claim benefits. So we're putting that beyond doubt.
Just over 5 million people in Britain claim out-of-work benefits. 98,000 of them are EU migrants. But from the 1st of January, new migrants will have to wait 3 months to make a claim. And the government also wants their job seekers' allowance to be stopped after 6 months. But who's here for the benefits? Not far from the house that was raided is the MMXIII deli. The Polish customers say their people come here to earn a living.
Most of them, they come to work, and they do work very hard.
I know many Polish people, and everybody works now, not take benefit.
So what problem is being fixed here? Is there one?
In fact, the rules already in place make it difficult to impossible for migrants to claim benefits within the first 3 months, and in fact we know that very few indeed do so. These are really phantom measures directed at a phantom problem.
And future migrants buying their sausages here can still claim benefits from their home countries for 3 to 6 months after arriving. The EU gave the whole thing a sniffy response.
There is absolutely no evidence that EU nationals go to the UK in order to claim benefits, or that there is any widespread or systematic abuse by EU nationals of other countries' welfare systems.
Of course, no one, not even the Prime Minister, knows how many people will come here when restrictions are lifted on Romanian and Bulgarian workers. Mr Cameron will get this benefit limit through before then, although other measures he'd like to see won't be ready until after the new year.
And as we've just seen, many migrants come here to the UK, keen to earn money and willing to pay their taxes. Tonight, in the latest in our series Destination Britain, we're focusing on those who've come here to work. Our correspondent Martin Geisler has been to a farm in Yorkshire where migrants are helping harvest sprouts.
December is always busy at Park Farm near Hull. They're picking the sprouts we'll all be eating in the days and weeks ahead. It's hard work with long hours in all conditions. But there's a strong team at work, virtually all of them from Eastern Europe. Farmer John Clappison says they're doing the jobs no one round here wants anymore.
Do you get much interest from the local population at a time of year like this for casual work?
No, very little. We always used to, and that seems to have waned. Often people wanted extra money for Christmas and things like that, but no one seems to bother now.
In the packing house, staff are paid well over minimum wage with generous overtime. The foreman, Arek Chapla, came here from Poland 4 years ago. He had no English and only planned to stay for a season. Now, as well as a language, he's learned a whole host of new skills.
Well, I like it. I enjoy it, and that's it. I'm not missing Poland, like I said.
Arek's partner, Marzena, followed him to England. She has a degree in engineering, but she's packing sprouts for now. She doesn't mind the work, but she does resent the suggestion that she and her colleagues are taking jobs from people here. She's even heard it from her English friends.
I'm not taking your job. If you wanna, you could just come. We still need more stuff, so it's a job. It's enough job for everyone. It's not just for Polish people, for Latvian people, for Russian people. It's enough job for English people as well, so I don't know why they are not coming.
Earlier this year, the government hacked back a long-standing scheme which brings migrant staff to Britain for seasonal work, picking fruit and vegetables. But there are warnings the move could backfire spectacularly and cost jobs right across the board.
If there's no staff to pick the fruit, then there's no point in growing it, and the industry will reduce in size dramatically.
It's as serious as that?
It's as serious as that.
Yeah, you're a big girl.
At the end of another long day, Arek and Marzena head back to Hull. They worked and saved hard for the deposit on this house. They're bringing up their daughter, Maya, here, and they're happy. For the time being, at least, this is home. Martin Geisler, ITV News, Hull.
Well, let's go back now to our political correspondent Carl Dinnan in Westminster tonight. And Carl, Mr Cameron's left it pretty late to bring about these changes to migrants' benefits.
He really has. I mean, it's a little bit like watching a man who's known all year when Christmas is coming, but still leaves it until just before the shops close on Christmas Eve before buying his presents. And some of Mr Cameron's measures can't even be delivered in time. Now, the government say this is because they've been having lawyers go through everything to make sure it's legal. There are others who say you must bear in mind that he's been facing a huge backbench rebellion on this issue. In fact, tonight I spoke to Nigel Mills, the MP leading that. He's now got 73 backbench signatories. That's a big rebellion that Mr Cameron is facing. Although I will say this, I don't think he's going to lose many votes by being tough on migrants' benefits.
Carl, thank you for that.
Police searching for missing teenager Jaden Parkinson say they think that they have found her body. Forensic teams have been searching a church graveyard in Didcot in Oxfordshire. The 17-year-old's been missing for more than 2 weeks.
And thousands of homes are without power tonight as gales and torrential rain batter western parts of the UK. This was the scene in Penzance in Cornwall earlier today. 2,500 homes are without power in Cumbria and Lancashire and around 1,000 in Northern Ireland. And you can get the latest on those storms and have a look at the latest weather warnings across the country. Just head to our website, itv.com/news.
ITV News has obtained exclusive pictures of a convent attacked and destroyed at a Christian pilgrimage site in Syria. 13 nuns have reportedly been taken hostage. The head of the Syrian Orthodox Church says he fears for their lives. Yesterday, Prince Charles added his voice to concerns that Christians are increasingly being targeted. Here's our diplomatic correspondent, John Ray.
Syria has become a nation where great faith offers little hope. And certainly no sanctuary. Flames now consume one of the sacred sites of Eastern Christianity, the convent of St. Takla, in times of peace a place of pilgrimage, in war a burning and battered reminder of Syria's descent into sectarian hatred. The fate of the nuns whose order has lived here for centuries is the subject of great confusion and growing concern. Malula is a Christian town turned a battleground between regime and rebel forces. 2 weeks ago, it was captured by hardline Islamists who claim to have taken for their own safety the nuns of St. Takla. In this jihadi video, the nuns say they are safe. Do not worry about us, they say. The women look relaxed, but the crosses they habitually wear have been removed, and many believe they are hostages, held to exchange for prisoners of the regime. A Christmas hymn in the ancient language of Malula, Aramaic, close to the dialect spoken by Christ 2,000 years ago. The head of the Syrian Orthodox Church in Britain told me he fears for the nuns' lives.
This is a dangerous situation in Syria. We are worried about maybe it's getting worse and worse. That is, many people they will be killed, to be kidnapped, to be displaced as well. We are worried about the situation.
The plight of Syria's Christians was highlighted yesterday by Prince Charles, who visited their cathedral in London and spoke later of the threat posed by Islamic militants. But here's their problem, their association with President Assad, who visited the nuns of St. Takla last year. Since the conflict began, 500,000 Syrian Christians have fled their homeland. Most from Malula have escaped to Damascus, caught in a conflict that is not of their choosing, but maybe their undoing. John Ray, ITV News.
Ronnie Biggs, one of the last surviving great train robbers, died this morning at the age of 84. The criminal became notorious after going on the run from British justice for 36 years.
Failing health finally forced him home, and he served out part of his remaining sentence before being released on compassionate grounds. But as Paul Davis reports, Biggs only showed remorse for his crimes towards the end of his life.
Here's to Mr. Slipper and Co.
Taunting the British police, who had to wait more than 3 decades to re-arrest him, Ronnie Biggs became one of the most notorious criminals of modern times. A small-time South London villain, Biggs was recruited to join the gang that carried out what came to be known as the Great Train Robbery. The overnight Glasgow to London mail train was stopped near Leighton Buzzard in Bedfordshire. The driver, Jack Mills, clubbed with an iron bar and more than £2.5 million stolen. Biggs was soon arrested and jailed for 30 years. But he escaped, scaling the walls of Wandsworth Prison, and told a TV crew why he could never return to Britain.
If I go back to England, I go back to what appears to be in the papers 28 years imprisonment.
Biggs ended up in Brazil, where he fathered a son and so couldn't be extradited. He made a living trading on his notoriety, boasting that he'd beaten the system.
Some people win it and some people lose it, and I'm happy to say that I won it.
It was old age and ill health that finally caught up with him. After a series of strokes, he was forced to return to Britain to complete his jail sentence. He was freed on compassionate grounds in 2009 and only then showed some remorse for his crime and the train driver who never fully recovered from his injuries.
Crime doesn't pay.
There were 17 members in the gang that stopped the Royal Mail train here. Despite the notoriety that would later come his way, Ronnie Biggs in fact had one of the smaller roles. He later said he made £147,000 as his cut and squandered it all within 3 years.
Ronnie Biggs died aged 84, 13,068 of his days spent on the run. Paul Davis, ITV News.
Let's have a look at tomorrow's front pages then. In the Telegraph's main story is that report we brought you earlier, the warning from the head of Britain's military that we risk becoming a hollow force with adequate equipment but no one to operate it. The Guardian leads on the report calling for a limit on the spying powers of America's National Security Agency, and the Times reports on how former pupils at boarding schools are breaking their silence over abuse they have lived with for decades.
And finally tonight, Bank of England Governor Mark Carney today announced that our fivers will look and feel rather different from 2016. They'll be the first to be made from a more durable plastic. And forget economic turmoil for a moment, these will survive a spin in the washing machine. Ben Chapman has more.
The colour of money may have changed down the decades, but our notes have all had two things in common. They've all borne the monarch's head and they've all been made from paper. But from 2016, plastic will be the new currency.
They're more secure, so they protect us against counterfeiting much better than the existing notes, better technology. Secondly, they're cleaner. They don't suffer from the deterioration we've seen with the paper-based notes, and they're more durable.
The Bank of England will stop printing the current paper £5 notes in 2 years' time. The new ones will be made of polymer, be about 15% smaller and feature a see-through window for extra security. They're expected to cost around twice as much to make, but last 2.5 times longer, saving £100 million in 10 years. And experts say they'll be much harder to fake.
Anybody who tries to print on that sort of thing without specialist knowledge and specialist materials would have great difficulty. And even if they did manage to print some form of image, what they would find is it would be such a bad quality, it would have no durability.
Just sign your banknote for me if you'll be so kind.
And there are others who deceive for a living who will miss the paper notes. Magicians won't be able to ignite them before bringing them back inside sealed envelopes.
It is the £5 note that I signed.
But new notes bring new challenges.
Well, I love it. I mean, on first glance, the idea of having a see-through part of the note offers many possibilities to a magician. So something could happen behind the note or in front of the note, something could disappear behind it or reappear in front of it.
So while it may take a little time to get used to them, paying with plastic is about to get a whole new meaning. Ben Chapman, ITV News.
And that is tonight's ITV News. Coming next, the national weather and the news where you are this evening.
But from both of us, a very good night to you.
Good night.
My cheeks are glowing. 7 Seas Pure Cod Liver Oil proudly sponsors the ITV National Weather.
Hello again, a very good evening to you. It's a wet night for much of the UK as a band of rain sweeps eastwards and clears away into the North Sea, leaving a legacy of much colder air and a fair few showers as well, which are going to be turning fairly wintry for many. Now, we are going to be seeing the risk of widespread ice as well, particularly further north where temperatures drop to around or below freezing. Also through tonight, we have a weather warning in force for very strong winds across much of Scotland, which in this darker shaded area here could gust up to 90 miles an hour in places. And we've also got very high tides to the western coastline. Now, as we look ahead to tomorrow morning, a real split in conditions, the best of the weather, lovely, sunny, dry, bright out across the central and eastern parts, wintry showers further west, which will work their way a little bit further inland during the afternoon. It's cold for everyone. Good night.
7 Seas Pure Cod Liver Oil proudly sponsors the ITV National Weather.